For our lesson tonight, we want to look at a lesson entitled Godly Leaders. And it comes from Psalm 101. Well, just 8 verses in that psalm. And if we just read it, gloss over it, sometimes we miss what is being said within the psalm itself. And here David is extolling the virtues of leaders with integrity. And isn't that a timely subject for today? I can remember a time, maybe it was just because I was younger and didn't pay attention to the news, when people weren't running for the president every year. It just seems like this presidential elections, you elect a president and somebody starts running for president the next day after they're inaugurated, and it just keeps going and going, and it gets dirtier and dirtier, the politics of it. And my dad used to say that if a politician wasn't crooked when they went into office, they were crooked when they came out. And it really seems a shame that politicians will use religion, they'll use morals in such a way to try to fool people into thinking that they really are people of integrity. But the very use of the word politician kind of belies that, because you can't be a politician and be a person of integrity. You're not going to get very far in this country that way. And it's like Abraham Lincoln, I believe, said, you fool some of the people some of the time, and all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And eventually they get tripped up, they get caught in something, and that's what happened with David. David, a man after God's own heart, got caught in sin, not just taking a bribe, not just speaking out of turn. He got caught in some sins that demanded execution, unless there was repentance. Now, understand that the law of Moses, adultery, stoned to death. Murder, stoned to death. But that's if there was no repentance. If there was repentance, there was mercy that can be found. So let's keep that in mind with David. But see, David as the king, David as the leader, he had made a vow that he was not going to be a leader like Saul before him, because Saul was not a man of integrity. Saul had a lot of issues going on in his life, a lot of faults underneath. He didn't want to be king in the first place. He tried to hide in the baggage when it became the day that he was to be chosen and appointed as the king. He really didn't want it. So he was never a man who felt capable of being a leader in the first place. But when thrust into that, instead of learning, instead of putting his trust in God, he became a king like the nations around Israel, exactly what the people wanted. God gave them what they wanted from the book of Judges. We want a king just like the nations around us. Samuel says, no, you don't. Here's what he'll do. Here's how he will act. Yeah, that's what we want. So that's what God gave them. God wanted to give them a godly king, a man after his own heart. They were just not willing to wait for David. So they got Saul. Now, what David is doing here in this psalm, probably after he's been caught, after he's made repentance, after things have settled down, he gets to thinking about it, and he's talking about what it means to be a godly leader, and particularly a leader of God's people. For the nation of Israel, they were considered God's people then. So what is it that David would have us to know about godly leadership? Well, here David is making a commitment to God and to the people of his nation to be the same person, whether he met them in public or whether he met them in private. Now see, within that you have integrity, or if you have the lack of that, there's a difference between what a person is in private and what he is in public. You have hypocrisy. And David did not want to play the hypocrite. He wanted to be a person of integrity, that he was the same all the time. And that's the lesson I believe that he's trying to get to us. So what he's doing, he's making a commitment, first of all, to personal integrity. Personal integrity. In other words, he's telling us what a godly leader is, because he's been through this terrible ordeal. It's of his own making. Told Lance that Jeremy and I watched Hondo last night. And if you've watched Hondo, the movie with John Wayne, you know, his the overrunning theme throughout that picture is a man ought to do what he thinks is right, and then suffer the consequences, whatever happens. If he's right, it's good. But if he does what he thinks is right and it's wrong, he's going to suffer the consequences. So, see, that's a libertarian approach, but that's an approach that I think David is trying to get us to understand. You need to do what you think is right, but if it ends up that what you think was right was actually wrong, then you need to suffer the consequences. You need to grow from that, and you get over it, and you move on. But learn. If you don't learn from your mistakes, then the mistakes were terrible. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. We all make mistakes. If we learn from them, they're good. See, they can be overcome. But if we don't, we just kind of drown in that cesspool of mistakes, because we don't want to admit that, hey, I've made a mistake here. So, here's what David is saying. The first, what do we got? 4 verses. Again, listen to these words of personal integrity. I will sing of steadfast love and justice to you, O Lord. I will make music. I will ponder the way that is blameless. Oh, when will you come to me? I will walk with integrity of heart within my house. I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not cling to me. A perverse heart shall be far from me. I will know nothing of evil. Now you see how personal that is, what David is talking about, things within himself and what he plans to do, how he's going to act, how he's going to walk before God and before his people. See, it's not enough to just put on a show in one's public life. It's got to be clear through. It's got to come down to this personal integrity of the individual, saying that if I'm by myself in my bedroom or in my prayer closet, wherever I am, I'm going to be the same person over and over again, because that's what God expects of me. And then I can deal with me. Say, if I can't deal with me, if I can't be the same and be honest with myself, then there's no way I'm going to be able to be honest with everybody else. Shakespeare, I think I've said it before, a friend of mine used to say it in his preaching. You know, Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. If we can't be true to ourselves, we can't be true to anybody. But if we're true to ourselves, say, then we can open up and we can be truthful to everybody that we come in contact with. And that's what David is talking about. Because personal integrity is built on a twin foundation of, number one, God's justice. God's justice. Yes, God is just and he will punish the unjust. But there's also God's mercy, or his loving kindness, the forgiveness we receive, that when we know we've sinned and we want to make that turn, that repentance, come back to him, he's willing to accept us. See? And that's what David found out. You know, David tried to cover up his sin for a little while. And where did it get him? He was depressed, wasn't he? He didn't want to be around people. He didn't want to go to church, to put it in those terms for his day. He didn't want to pray because he knew there was something wrong. Until he dealt with that, then it was going to be wrong. His life was going to be wrong. So he made this commitment to personal integrity. And what we have to understand, what he had to understand, was that commitment to personal integrity is essential for God's blessing. If we're not committed to a life of personal integrity, God's not going to bless us. He's not. Well, we'll get There are creator blessings and there are father blessings. You ever notice that in the scriptures? The creator blessings. He sends the rain on the just and the unjust. He makes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. There's no difference with the creator blessings. It's just out there. We all breathe the same air, don't we? But the father blessings, like forgiveness of sin, like the gift of the Holy Spirit, and in the comfort of the Christian. There are so many things that don't come to everybody. They're only for the Christian. They're only for the child of God. But see, when they come, they're because there's been a commitment to that personal integrity, where the person says, I want to be right with God, and I want to be right with everybody else. I want to walk as God would have me to walk. So not only is it essential for God's blessing, it leads to that expectation of blessing. All right? If I walk godly, I expect God to bless me. How could I expect God to bless me if I'm walking around as the hypocrite? See? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Because that's outside of the character of God. So it's when I get to working what is right in my life. And Philippians say God is working things into our lives, and those are the things we need to be working out in our lives. So how do we approach this? Well, David says, I will ponder the way that is blameless. Sit down and meditate on the things that are good. Psalm 1, right? Blessed is the man. Why? What does he do? He meditates on God's word, what, day and night. It's constantly on his mind because it's constantly in his heart. It's constantly in his spirit, say. That's what he's looking at. You know, what would God have me to do? We look for the blessings. I will walk with integrity of heart within my house, David says. Now, we'll deal with that later in the lesson, but think about that. In my house, think of Joshua. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. So there was an integrity there with Joshua that David had forgotten for a while. You realize how David messed up his own family with some of the things that he had done by his lack of integrity? His own sons were trying to kill him to take over the kingdom. They wanted to be king. Blended families, we talk about blended families today. David's family was a blended family. What did they have? 3 wives, 4 wives, 5 wives, all these different stepchildren going through, or half brothers and sisters. One brother rapes his half sister right in David's house. David had to learn a lot, didn't he? He had to. See, that's what we talk about, where being a spiritual person and being a child of God means that we're continually in a growth process, because the devil's going to throw new things at us all the time. David says, oh, when will you come to me? Speaking to the Lord. When will you come to me, Lord? What? What? Because in that situation, he was separated from God. His sins had separated him from God. Yes, a man after God's own heart, and his sins had separated him from God until Nathan comes and says, you're the man, David. You're the man. You did this stuff. David, now's your time. Now's your chance. You know, you can be a man of God. You can repent, or you can continue on with this lack of personal integrity. So there was an expectation of God's blessing, and there was an expectation of God's presence, the Lord's presence in his life. What a wonderful blessing that is, that Jesus has promised that he'll be with us to the end. But we've got to be people of personal integrity. This commitment to personal integrity also means that we resist the enemies of personal integrity. Look what David says. David says, I'm not going to look at junk. Well, that's that worthless thing, say. The worthless thing in the psalm. Don't look at junk. What gets us in trouble? We look at junk, and junk glitters, doesn't it? Junk sometimes is attractive, and we want that junk in our lives. Junk can become idols, because idols are junk. That's what they are. They're worthless. They're creating things, and we can't pursue them. We need to pursue God. And with David says, I'm going to resist the outright immoral things. Don't give in to temptation. Now, temptation's always going to be out there. And I think that we're all going to give in to temptation time to time. But what he's saying is, I'm making a commitment to be on the lookout more and more for those things that would tempt me, so that I can say no before the temptation really takes hold, before I take the bait. So, resist the outright immoral things. He talks about time wasters. Time wasters that have no lasting value. Okay? Think about what the Greeks valued. They valued sitting around just talking about stuff and visiting and meeting people from other places. The city of Athens, say, what they did, they just wanted to say, where are you from and what have you been through and what's your philosophy of life? Well, sometimes that's good. You want to know the person, but that's all they were really concerned with. They weren't really concerned with trying to teach them anything profitable. It's just, hey, you got a story, I've got a story. Let's just sit there and talk about our story. Well, there are so many time wasters in our culture. Now, look, we all need time for recreation. We all need time for vacation. But sometimes we kind of overdo it to the point where we're doing nothing. And think about it in terms of children today. What's the biggest problem with children today? I'm bored. Right? My grandchildren, my daughter has a great way of handling it. My grandchildren say they're bored, they get something to do. There's what the problem is. Okay? So we've got to be careful that we don't become time wasters too. We've got to redeem the time that God has given us. There's giving into the temptation and all, to backslide. To go back where we were before we met God. Because that's where the world is. And we live in this world. We've always got to keep moving forward. We've got to resist that pressure. David says, don't be seduced by a perverse heart. Perverse heart. And Jeremiah tells us that the heart is wicked. Now that's kind of like the physical heart, the emotional part of it. See, emotions are important because, as we talked this morning, we've got to love God. But when we turn to loving our fellow man, it's not so much emotional as it is practical. What are we going to do good to this individual? But sometimes our heart becomes perverse because we do become emotional over things. We let the emotions overrule the rational being, the understanding being, and sometimes even the spiritual being. So we've got to be careful because we can lose our person. So that's what happened to Adam and Eve, wasn't it? Once they knew evil, you couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. And that's for all of us. See, it's just there, and it's in the world that we live in. It's all around us. We're immersed in it, and we typically end up falling into it. But I can imagine that each one of us has images in our mind that we can't get rid of. They're there because we gave into something somewhere along the line, and now it's there. And we can't get rid of that. But we can't overcome the guilt of it by saying, I've been forgiven by God. And that's the important thing. So did David lose his innocence? You bet he did. Committing adultery, lying, getting a man drunk, and ended up being the architect of murdering that innocent man. Say, he lost his innocence. But he was able to overcome the guilt through his repentance and God's forgiveness. Now, you go one step away from the personal integrity. It's important for godly leaders to have that personal integrity. Remember, David's king. and there are a lot of people looking at him and who's around him. So he has to make a commitment to organizational integrity. Organizational integrity. How a godly leader leads. Because he's the leader. And he's got to make sure that things are being done right. Starting with verse 5, going down through verse 8. Whoever slanders his neighbor secretly, I will destroy, David says. Imagine that. Well, what's he going to do? How's he going to destroy him? He's going to kill him? It may be just, I'm going to put that man out of my administration. That's how we would use it today, right? Well, it seems like, where can I find a dishonest person to put in my administration? Where can I find a crooked man who will do my bidding to put in this office? Who will pay me for this office? David says that kind of stuff's wrong. So, again, whoever slanders his neighbor secretly, I will destroy. Whoever has a haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. I will look with favor on the faithful in the land, that they may dwell with me. He who walks in the way that is blameless shall minister to me, and to serve me. Verse 7. No one who practices deceit shall dwell in my house. No one who utters lies shall continue before my eyes. Morning by morning I will destroy all the wicked in the land, cutting off all the evildoers from the city of the Lord. Those are 4 very powerful verses on organizational integrity, and anywhere from government to business. Just imagine how the world would change if this was practiced today. He says, I'm going to fight against slanderers. How do you fight against slanderers? But you tell the truth. Tell the truth. Somebody slanders your brother, what do? You say, no, that's not right, and I'm not putting up with it. You're the one who's wrong, and you can't do that around me. I won't allow it. There are also people who slander God. What do we do when people slander God? I know there's sometimes you can't do much about it, but sometimes you can get a person alone, and you can talk to them when they're not around their friends who are going to be amening their slander against God, and you can do some real teaching one-on-one with somebody like that. Because usually what they're doing when they're slandering God, they're just talking about something that they don't understand, and they're trying to be popular. And once they find out that you have a different feeling about it, you see their character change a little bit. There are people who slander God's Word, the Bible. It's not God's Word. It's just something made up. So we've got to be ready to give a defense for God's Word to people who would do that. And to people who slander the righteous, good people, make fun of good people. See? That's who David says he's going to fight against. He says he's going to fight against the proud and the arrogant. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, the Apostle Paul writes, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. We get it right first in our own minds. We take every thought captive, and then we're ready to destroy these arguments. These people who are puffed up think they're so intelligent, but they're not people of faith. They can't even comprehend faith. But see, we fight against it in a scriptural, biblical, godly way. We try to convert them. There's a commitment to reject all liars. David says, no one who practices deceit will be in my administration. I'm not going to put somebody who practices deceit over, say, this district down here in southern Judah. I'm not going to put somebody who utters lies in my administration, making them, say, a governor up here in this particular region in the northern part. I'm not going to do it because I've seen what deceit does, how it destroys relationships and destroys people, and I've seen what lies do, because it is lie that led to the death of Uriah David says he's going to destroy the wicked, cutting off all the evil doers. Now, look, you want to do evil, that's your choice, right? But don't expect me to pay for it. Don't expect me to pay for your mistake. I can't do that. See? We can try to change people's hearts. We can give people choices of what this world is about, what life is about. We can give them the choice to be godly people. He says, it's going to work to destroy the wicked. What's the best way to destroy the wicked? Teach them righteousness and convert them to Christ. Now, are we going to win the world? No. In fact, this world is set for destruction. But that doesn't mean we can't win some. That doesn't mean we can't convert a few. And everyone that we do is a precious soul that's saved for eternity. So, as we kind of bring this down close to the close, briefly examine the crux of this psalm. What's David talking about when he's talking about godly leaders? First thing we have to understand, look at the realms that leaders need to guard. My house, David says. This isn't going to happen in my house. Well, he tries, see, but the damage has been done already. But here we go. Lessons to learn. What is it? It's not necessarily in the book of Proverbs. You can read it into it. That the fool learns by experience, but the wise man learns by watching the fool and not doing what the fool has done. Avoiding that. See where he's tripped up and say, well, hey, I saw that. That didn't lead to good, so I'm going to avoid that. So here, my house. And for David, it was the house of David, because kings were going to come in his ancestry for 1,000 years. Kings and governors of Judah were David's descendants. And the Christ came as a child from the ancestry of David, Mary being a direct descendant of David. The city of the Lord, David talks about. Well, for us today, that's the church. We've got to protect the church. Protect the church from open sin and open rebellion. We've got to be careful, because the world out there is watching us, seeing how we act and how we conduct ourselves. So not only do we individually have to have the personal integrity, we've got to make sure we have the organizational integrity there. And also he talks about the land. And that's just what belongs to the Lord. The world belongs to the Lord. Okay? It's his. Now, Satan's called the prince of the air and the prince of this world, but that's because he's leading a rebellion, and there are more people following him than there are following the Lord. So we've got to protect the land, or at least defend the land to a degree to where we want our nation to be a nation that honors God. For sure. See, that begins with us. Personal integrity, moving to the organizational integrity. Now, David talks about the constancy of the work. Look at that last verse. Morning by morning. When do we have to do this? Say, well, this is a constant battle. Daily. Daily we've got to get up, we've got to pick up our cross, and we've got to put on our armor. Because Satan doesn't take a day off. When it comes to spiritual matters, we can take a day off physically. So I love days off from Walmart. You know, that's good not to have to go there and work, just go there and shop maybe. But see, spiritually, we can't take a day off because Satan doesn't. And the world doesn't take a day off from attacking us. So it's constant. What does that mean? Early. All right? Morning. Don't wait till afternoon. Don't wait till evening. Start in the morning when you get out of bed. Daily, every day. consistently. And that deals with that integrity issue, doesn't it? Consistently be the same person. But yeah, we may have to grow. That's good change, isn't it? But be consistent in the way that we deal with people, consistent in a good way, and do it correctly. Correctly. Do it God's way. Learn God's way, do it God's way. What a wonderful thing it is. Now, we have to have our discernment antennas up all the time. Yeah, we got to be watching around us, see who's there. Well, what is it Peter says? That Satan's like a roaring lion walking around seeking who he may devour. He may not be on the earth like he was at one time, but yet he is still out there with devices and with his fallen angel demons to attack and destroy our faith. Love that song. Faith is the victory that overcomes the world. That's true. We've got to make our faith strong. And I think that's a little bit of what David is talking about here. So, David knew how difficult it was to be the same person in private and in public. See? Because he's the king. He's going to be meeting with a lot of people. He's got a lot of people under him. He's got a lot of people who are dependent upon him for their daily living, for their daily bread. He's responsible for that whole kingdom. So he knows he can't tell one person one thing and then turn around and go in his room and say, oh, cut out of that one, say. It won't work that way. Eventually it's going to catch up to the individual. He sinned in private, right? He sinned in private with Bathsheba, but then he tried to cover it up in public. And it didn't work. It never does. What does the scripture say? Be sure your sin will find you out. It's going to catch up to us sooner or later. So we got to deal with it. May as well deal with it early, morning by morning. So deal with it, get it out there, and then you can move on, you can grow. So David repented when his sin was made public. He repented and God forgave him. And what happened? He continued to be the leader of Israel, didn't he? Even though he sinned, he was still able to be the leader because he repented. What if he had refused to repent? He'd probably been cast out as leader, like Saul eventually was. So leaders are to be men of integrity. Big men, we will sometimes stumble and fall. That doesn't preclude us from being leaders. The only failure for a person to be a leader, having been a leader, is to fail to repent and seek forgiveness. That's it. It precludes a man from continuing leadership. That's very simple, and that's easy to understand. So I think we can all learn a lesson from David in this psalm. Let us all strive to be godly people, to be the same both in public and in private, but to be godly people in private. Thank you so much for your attention. Appreciate it so much. If you're here tonight, subject to the invitation anyway, ask that you make your request known, so stand and sing in just a moment. The invitation